Hello guys, welcome to Acquire Knowledge. This is your Monesh Mustageer. In the last video session, we are going to be discussed about the general aspects of reproduction in organisms. Both the sexual kind of the reproduction and the asexual kind of the reproductions we are generally discussing. We are going to be completed in the last video section. In this today video session, we are going to be discuss about the very in detail about the asexual kind of the reproduction. Okay, in the last classes, we are going to be discuss about the definition of the reproduction, especially in case of the asexual kind of reproduction. Okay, once again we are going to be recall the definition of asexual kind of the reproduction. What is the meaning of asexual kind of reproduction? So the definition is itself saying that only the single parent is involving in the case of the reproduction, which is having ability to give birth to their young ones with or without involvement of the gametes. Okay. The most important thing, asexual reproduction is defining that only the single parent is involving, either the male or the female, the single parent is involving in case of the reproduction with or without involvement of the gametes, or we can able to say no gametes are involving in this one. With or without involvement of the gametes, the organisms which are having ability to give birth to their young ones. The single parent which is involving in the cases of reproduction, which is having ability to give directly birth to their young ones with or without involvement of the gametes. Such thing we are going to be called as the asexual reproduction. So just by the involvement of the single parents, so the formed offsprings, how exactly are there? So they are morphologically and genetically which are quite exactly to their parents, or which are exactly similar to their parents. So such things we are going to be observed in case of the asexual kind of the reproduction. So because of their genetically and morphologically similar offsprings which are exact copy of their parents, such things we are going to be called as the clones. Is it right? Okay, fine. So the clones are nothing but the offsprings which are both the genetically and morphologically exact copy their parents. So such things, the clones we are going to be only observing in case of the asexual kind of the reproduction, which is not possible in case of the sexual reproduction. Why? Because in case of the sexual reproduction, both the involvement of the male and the female parents will going to be takes place. Just by the involvement of the both the male and the female parents, what happens is there chances of the involvement of the gametes. So because of the fusion of the male and the female gametes, the formed offsprings are which are never exact 100% similar to their parents. Some of the variations and the recombinations are possible. But in case of the asexual reproduction, just by the involvement of the single parents, so the formed clones are nothing but these are the offsprings which are genetically and morphologically exact copy to their parents. So, and most important thing, what we are going to be observe that, so in case of the asexual reproduction, there is no formation of the gametes and there is no any kind of the fusion of the gametes. Why? Because only the single parent is involving in case of the asexual kind of the reproduction, and there is no recombination and there is no any kind of the crossing over. This is also very most important. So just involvement of the only single parent, what happening, there is no chances of the fusion of the gametes and even there is no formation of the gametes. So because of there is no gametes, only the single parent is involving. So for that reason, what happening here, there is no any kind of the recombination and even any kind of the crossing over. If both the male and the female parents are involving, is there chances of the recombination and the crossing over will going to be takes place. But in case of the asexual reproduction, the single parent is responsible for the formation of the offsprings. So for that reason, what happening here, there is no recombination and no crossing over. Even there is no, we are going to be observed, there is no any kind of the variations also. Why? Because these asexually formed offsprings are the clones, means they are exactly copy to their parents. And the one more important thing, so these asexual kind of the reproduction we are going to be observed in the most of the unicellular organisms are the single-celled organisms. So most of these similar organisms, those the body of the organism is quite similar. In such kind of the organisms we are going to be observe the asexual kind of the reproduction or the asexual mode of the reproduction. So such kinds of the reproduction we are going to be observing the most of the similar organisms are the simpler organisms. Okay. So and one what we are going to be observing here, the more this asexual kind of the reproduction is quite common among the single celled organisms, or we can able to say single celled organisms, or even we can able to say the unicellular organisms. the asexual mode of the reproduction is the quite most common. And the one most important thing we are going to discuss here, the most of the unicellular organisms and most of the simple organisms such as we are going to be called as the, even it may be the amoeba. So in case of the within the plant, the simple plants like the algae. So even in case of the animals, the monera, even protists. So such kinds of the organisms will always going to be exhibit the asexual kind of the reproduction. Most of the unicellular organisms and the simple organisms, the body of the organisms is the quite simple. Such kinds of the organisms will going to be exhibit the most of the asexual mode of the reproduction. So and one more important thing is that, so most of the unicellular organisms, they are going to be exhibit the, so what we are going to be called as the inclusive events. So most of the unicellular organisms, they are going to be exhibit the inclusive events in case of the asexual kind of the reproduction. What is the meaning of the inclusive events? So the inclusive events, it will going to be referred as, so if the asexual kind of the reproduction is occurring in the simple organisms or the single celled organisms, they are going to be have the mechanism of the reproduction. How exactly? If the organism, it will going to be the single parent, it will going to be have ability to give rise to two new individuals. So these two new individuals, again they will going to be grow and mature, and then they will going to be have ability to give rise to another same kind of the organisms. So this is we are going to be known as the inclusive events. Inclusive events are nothing but if the organisms which is the growing and then they are going to be dividing. So again the organisms, again they are growing and they again they are going to be involving in cases of the cell division. Here what happens? The cell division is itself the mode of the reproduction in case of the asexual kind of organisms. So asexual reproduction. Cell division is itself a mode of reproduction. Mode of reproduction. Is it right? So what happening? If the single parent, if B is growing and maturing, once they are going to attain the maturity, they are going to be divided into the similar kind of the organisms. So again these will going to be grow and mature, and then finally they will also having the ability to give birth to the another same kind of the organisms. Again these organisms will going to be grow and mature, again they will going to be have ability to give rise to birth to the young ones. This kind of the growth, maturity and then division. So division is a inclusive events in case of the unicellular organisms. They are going to be in the first year, the first chapter, that is nothing but the in the living world we are going to be discuss the growth, the definition of the growth. Growth is nothing but what happening? The increasing in the size of the organisms. Is it right? Increasing in the size of the organisms and again increasing in the number of individuals is referred as the growth. So in this here what happens in this case? The organisms which is growing, once they are going to be attain their maturity, they are going to be starts for the further division. So once these organisms are going to be again grow and mature, and once they are going to be attain the maturity, again they are going to be further go for the division. So such kind of the mechanism or the events we are going to call as the inclusive events we are going to be observed in case of the unicellular organisms. And in most of the organisms, so for cell division is not a kind of the reproduction in each and every cases. For example, we are the human beings, we are going to be lost some of the cells. For example, we are going to be lost the RBC cells. Is it right? The red bloods, once we are going to be lost the red blood cells, we are going to be, again they are going to be reforms, the divisions, the mitosis and the meiosis will going to be takes place. Again there is the chances of the formation of the reformation of the cells. So this is not a kind of the reproduction. We are going to be known as, that is, we are only going to be claimed as the, that is the division. But in case of the most of the unicellular organisms, the cell division is itself a kind of the reproduction or the mode of the reproduction. So why? So we can able to say this one is the division or the reproduction. The organism which is growing, once they are going to attain the maturity, they are going to again go for the division. These organisms are going to attain their maturity, they are going to be again go for the division or the reproduction. In most of the unicellular organisms, we are going to observe the such kinds of the division, growth and the division. So these interchangeable events we are going to be known as the inclusive events, right? So in the next bit we are going to be discuss about the in most of the asexual kind of the mode of the reproduction, the organisms, most of the unicellular organisms are only going to exhibit the asexual kind of the organisms. Either it may be the plants or it may be the animals. So lower plants like the algae or the some other plants, and the even lower animals like the protists, the monerans, the organisms are going to exhibit the most of the asexual kind of the reproduction. So next we are going to be discuss about the most important the kind of the asexual kind of the mode of the reproduction. The first one is in that one, that is nothing but the binary fission. We are going to be discuss the one by one. Binary fission. So in the word itself indicating that what is meaning by the binary fission, the bi means nothing but the 2 or the 2 in numbers. So fission is nothing but the division. So what happening here, the parental body will going to be divided into 2 equal halves. So such kinds of the division we are going to be termed as the binary fission. So bi means nothing but the 2 in number. So what happens, the single parent will going to be dividing into 2 new organisms which are equal in size of their parents. So fission is nothing but the division. What happening here? In case of the binary fission, the parental body will going to be dividing into 2 equal halves. Such kinds of the division we are going to be termed as the binary fission. Or the definition of the binary fission will going to be defined as the cell divides into 2 equal halves. So cell will going to be divided into 2 equal halves. So 2 equal halves which are, so again we are going to say, which are again rapidly grow into 2 new individuals. So what happening here? The parental body will going to be dividing into 2 equal halves. So which are having ability to again grow and mature. They will going to be working as the 2 new individual organisms. Such kinds of the division we are going to be termed as the binary fission. So the examples for the binary fission are nothing but we are going to be termed as the amoeba and the paramecium. Right. Amoeba and the paramecium are the best example for the binary fission. Okay, now we are going to be discuss in detail about the how exactly binary fission will going to be takes place. How exactly 2 equal individual halves will going to be formed, or the 2 new organisms will going to be formed. So in most of the, let me see about the within in amoeba how exactly binary fission will going to be takes place. So now we are all know about that the amoeba, which is always in the irregular in shape. So again, which is having the nucleus within it. So always amoeba will going to be exhibit the 2 inclusives, two most of the exclusions we are going to be termed as the pseudopodia. Pseudopodials are the, we are going to be termed as the pseudopodia. So these 2 exclusions we are going to be termed as the pseudopodia. Even we are going to be called, those things are the false feet. So let me clarify why these things are called as the false feet. So these 2 exclusions are going to be termed as the pseudopodia, always help in the amoeba to show their movement. So we are going to be generally know about the amoeboid movements. So what is the meaning of the amoeboid movement? Nothing but amoeba will going to be exhibit the kind of the movement. It will going to be travels from the one place to the another place with the help of these pseudopodia. So such things we are going to be called as the false feet. So this is not permanently exactly present in within the amoeba. So for that we are going to be called as the false feet. Why? Because the amoeba which is always irregular in their shape. So what happens? The first and the most important thing in case of the binary fission. So the amoebal body will going to be starts for the division. So the body will going to be divided means what happens? So these are nothing but the other cell organelles of the amoeba. So what happens? The first in case the cell will going to be starts for the division. Is it right? So always, so nucleus will going to be starts for the division in case of the amoeba. So amoeba which is again always irregular in shape. So what happens? What happening here? Just by the formation of the strain. So within the nucleus, the strain is forming. So due to that, what happening here? The nucleus will going to be starts for the division. So just by again while the nucleus will going to be dividing, so other cell organelles also and other cell organelles within this one will going to be also go for the division and is separated. So what happens later onwards? So again this amoeba will going to be again the nucleus will going to be form the again very high strain. So always again what happens, the other cellular the parts will going to be or the cellular organelles will going to be starts for the division. At last what happens, this amoeba will going to be form the two new equal individual amoeba. So will again the nucleus will going to be separate independently within the two equal halves. So by this what happens, the amoeba will going to be exhibit their asexual mode of the reproduction. Binary fission. What happening here? The nucleus will going to be go for the division. So just by forming this strain, what happens? Nucleus will going to be starts for the division. So within the nucleus again other cellular organelles are also going to be distributed equally. So again at finally both the two equal individual amoeba will going to be formed. So within these other cellular organelles will going to be equally distributed. Such kinds of the division we are going to be termed as the binary fission. So in most important thing within this one we should going to be mention that what happening here. So during the favorable condition only amoeba can exhibit the binary fission, or the amoeba can exhibit their mode of the asexual kind of reproduction within the favorable conditions. So what happens in case of the unfavorable conditions? So for example we are going to be talking about the imaginary favorable conditions. For example, amoeba is going to be properly exhibit their asexual mode of the reproduction, that is nothing but the binary fission, if for example for the 20 degrees Celsius. So just imagine it, the 20 degrees Celsius temperature, we are talking about the condition like the temperature. So if the amoeba can exhibit the asexual mode of the reproduction, that is nothing but the binary fission in the temperature of the 20 degrees Celsius. If the environmental condition is having the about 30 degrees Celsius temperature, the amoeba will never going to be exhibit their mode of the binary fission. Even it will never go for the reproduction. Why? Because within the unfavorable condition, if the amoeba wants to reproduce, amoeba will going to be get vanishes out, or it will going to be what happens? It will going to be get harmed due to the higher the temperature. So within the if the amoeba is having the only 20 degrees Celsius of the temperature, that is nothing but the favorable temperature, amoeba will going to be always exhibit their mode of binary fission, that is nothing but the asexual kind of the reproduction. If the amoeba is having the more than 20 degrees Celsius, so it is we are going to be termed as the unfavorable condition. During the unfavorable condition, amoeba will never going to be exhibit their mode of reproduction. So such things we are going to be called as the encystation and the sporulation. We are going to be discussed in again next. So what is the meaning of encystation and what is the meaning of sporulation? So within the binary fission we are going to be discuss about the encystation and the sporulation. Encystation and sporulation, which is the very most important bit regarding the amoeba. So during the unfavorable condition, amoeba what they will going to be do? So if the temperature, imaginary temperature, if the amoeba is having the 35 degrees Celsius means, so of course this is the unfavorable condition for the amoeba. 20 degrees Celsius is only the favorable temperature. So during the unfavorable condition, that is if the temperature is having the 35 degrees Celsius, what happens? So again this is the amoeba. So again this is the nucleus. So what happens? So amoeba will going to be starts to form the 3 more layers are the protecting layer surrounding the amoebal body. So what happens? So during the unfavorable condition, amoeba will going to be form the 3 protecting layers around the amoeba. This is the original structure of the amoeba. Is it right? The body of the amoeba. So what they are going to be do? So during the unfavorable condition, if the amoeba will going to be recognized, now it is the unfavorable condition, we are unable to reproduce, we should not going to go for the reproduction. What they are going to be do? So just they are going to be do for the encystation. Encystation means nothing but the the formation of the layers around the body of the amoeba. So they are going to be formed up to 3 layers, 1, 2 and the 3 protective layers around the surrounding the body of the amoeba. So these layers we are going to be called as the cysts. So cysts are nothing but the 3 protecting layers around the body of the amoeba. So these 3 layers always going to be protect the amoeba from the unfavorable conditions. Even if the temperature is the 35 degrees Celsius, so what they are going to be do, amoeba will never going to be exhibit the asexual kind of the reproduction, that is nothing but the binary fission. It will going to be fuse there, or it will going to be pause their mode of the reproduction. So and the body of the amoeba is always protected by the 3 layers. So these layers are going to be called as the cyst layers. So within the word is itself indicating that the encystation. The cystation is nothing but the formation of the layers. Encystation means nothing but it will going to be covering by the body of the amoeba is covering by the 3 protective layers, that is nothing but the cysts. So what happens, just by the formation of these protective layers, amoeba will going to be safe within the layers. So what happens, amoeba later onwards it will going to be exhibit the formation of the small pores around within the body of the amoeba. So such things we are going to be called as that is nothing but the pseudopodiospores, the multiple number of the pores. So always these are the round in shape, so for that reason we are going to be termed as the pores. So what happens, this will going to be exhibit the pseudopodiopores. Pseudopodiospores. So what they are going to be do, amoeba will going to be always exhibit the, once encystation will going to be, the layers will going to be covered by the body of the amoeba, what they are going to be do, amoeba will going to be starts to formation of the spores. So these spores are nothing but the multiple number of the amoeba is itself. So these multiple number of the amoeba are going to be formed within the body of the amoeba. So such things we are going to be called as the pseudopodiospores. So these spores are going to be formed within the body of the amoeba. Once the amoeba will going to be again return back its favorable condition, 35 to 1, they are going to be get the again 20 degrees Celsius favorable conditions, means what they are going to be do, again the amoeba will going to be, what happens, so within these spores will going to be exhibit the pressure within the amoeba. So these, the multiple number of these spores are even we are going to be termed as the multiple amoeba itself. So later onwards I will going to say why these are termed as the multiple amoeba. So these multiple number of the spores will going to be exhibit the pressure within the body of the amoeba, just because of the exhibition of the, or just because of the expression of the pressure within the amoeba, what happens, these 3 more layers they are going to be starts for the breaking. Is it right? They are going to be exhibit for the breaking. Once these layers will going to be break, what happens, these spores will going to be completely releases out in the environment. These individual spores are having ability to work as the new individual amoeba. So for that reason we are going to look at as the sporulation is nothing but the release of the spores, that is nothing but the pseudopodiospores. The release of the pseudopodiospores from the body of the amoeba is termed as the sporulation. Encystation and the sporulation means nothing but once the amoeba will going to be returned back its favorable condition, it will going to be releases its spores. So once the amoeba will going to be attain the unfavorable condition, or it is in the condition of the unfavorable, they will going to be form the 3 more protective layers around the amoeba. So such things we are going to call as the encystation. Once they will going to be returned back to the favorable condition, this amoeba will going to be exhibit the sporulation just by breaking these 3 layers, that is nothing but the cyst layers. How they will going to be break down? Just by the pressure exhibited within the amoeba, so sporulation will going to be get occurs. Now these individual spores will going to be work as the new individual amoeba, 1, 2, 3, 4 and the 5, so on the multiple number of the amoeba will going to be exhibit or work as the new individual amoeba. So for that reason these sporulations or the spores are going to be termed as the even multiple amoeba. So at last we are going to be so this is the nothing but the budding in the amoeba. So this is the encystation and the sporulation. This is mentioned in your NCR. So at last we are going to be discuss about the another kind of the mode of the asexual kind of reproduction. That is nothing but the budding. So we have discussed about the we are completed about the binary fission. Now we are going to discuss the very next, that is nothing but the budding. So you may remember that the budding is nothing but the formation of the buds. So in the binary fission, what we are going to discuss, the formation of the two halves are the quite equal. For example, if the parent is having the 50 gram, means the another two, the formed body are will going to be having the 25 gram and the 25 gram of the body weight, for example. So but in case of the budding, what happens, so it is the unequal kind of the division or the mode of the, so within this is the again asexual kind of the reproduction. So here what happens, the body of the organisms will going to be divided in unequal. So unequal and the small buds will going to be formed. Unequal and small buds are going to be formed. So most of the budding we are going to be observed in the hydra and the, so hydra and the yeast. The examples for the budding is nothing but the unequal division of the body. What happens, the parental body is quite larger as compared to their offspring. So what happens here, most important thing, the formation of the buds will going to be takes place. Formation of buds will going to be takes place. Means, so in case of the budding is the word itself given as the formation of the buds. So these are again always unequal. The parental body is quite larger. We are going to be observed by the diagrams for the easy understanding. So what happens if the parental body, is it right? If the parental body, the yeast is having again, so nucleus and other cellular organelles. This is the complete parental body. What happens? This parental body will going to be form the small bud on the body of the, this one, hydra. So for example, yeast, we are going to talk about the first yeast. So within the yeast, what happens? The yeast will going to be form a small bud on the surface of the body of the this yeast. So what happens? This bud again, once again, what happens? Further next, this nucleus of the parental yeast will going to be starts for the division. Division of the nucleus will going to be takes place. So later onwards, further what happens? Completely this nucleus will going to be divided and separate from the parental body and the bud. So at last completely this bud will going to be work as the new individual yeast, and this is now working as the parental body. So here just see the definition. What happens? The unequal kind of the division will going to take place. The parental body is quite larger, but the bud or the offspring is quite the smaller. And most important thing, so in the budding we are going to be say about that unequal division, where the bud will going to be initially attached to their parental body. So initially this bud will going to be attached to the parental body. At later onwards it will going to be get detaches from the parental body and work as the new individual yeast. So this is the another kind of the asexual mode of the reproduction. That is nothing but the budding. Budding is nothing but the unequal division, where the buds are initially attached to their parental body. Initially attached to their parental body. Later onwards, what happens? Once they are going to be get for the favorable condition, they are going to be just break down from the parental body and they are going to be work as the new individual yeast. So this is the same kind of the reproduction we are going to be even we can able to observe in the hydra also. Hydra can also exhibit the same kind of the mode of the asexual reproduction. So if the body of the hydra is like this, means so what happens here? They are going to be form a small buds in within the body of the, that is nothing but the hydra. So even it will going to be later on, initially they will going to be attached with their parental body, and later onwards they will going to be get detaches from the parental body and work as the new individual. This is a kind of the asexual mode of reproduction, that is nothing but the budding. So always the budding is the unequal division, but always the binary fission is always the equal division. Is it right? So in the coming videos, anyhow, in the coming videos we are going to be discuss about the few more kind of the asexual mode of the reproduction. And once again, thank you guys, thank you for the watching the video. If you are going to be definitely get the beneficial this video, please share, subscribe and the watch the video and Support us guys. Thank you. Once again, thank you.